So I feel like now's a better time than ever to take a look at all the cards that make up the Mermail, Atlantean, and Deep Sea archetypes now that basically all of them have come out, and there's no indication in the foreseeable future of any sort of support, except maybe for the create a card pull, but that's so later. And I'm just going to flip through everything, try to keep it underneath a pretty reasonable amount of time, or I could just take as much as I want to. Other than just the entire thing looking like a huge blue mess, it's a pretty fun deck. I'm not gonna lie, there's some good cards, there's some bad cards, there's some stuff that could definitely be better should they be missing a sentence or two. So I'm just gonna run through the Mermail stuff first, starting from like the boss monsters going down to the level 3s, because I feel like that's like the best place to start forever. And so to start things off, we'll take a look at Mermail Abyss guys. I actually have all the cards in my hands so I can look through them, just so I can, reiterate their effects to exactly how good they are. Gaios just requires 2 level 7 water monsters to do anything. And so, for example, if we were to compare him to like in a vacuum or in the Mermail deck in general, it's pretty easy to get 2 level 7 waters out. Having 2,800 attack and then being able to detach a material whenever he wants to during your turn on your opponents, basically whenever he wants to. And then also negating monster effects who has lower attack than him, as well as also preventing level 5 or higher monsters from attacking. He's a pretty good monster. It's just right now, True Ball Calamity's kind of outshines him, but if that card ever goes or, stuff becomes worse, this card's really good and it can provide a real struggle for other decks such as Thunders and Dinos. So it's pretty good. You can equip an equip spell to him. Moving on to Abyss Trite, she's something. Yeah, she used to be the thing you summoned off of Bahamut Shark, but you have Totally Awesome now, who's just all around a better card, because Abyss Trite doesn't even work unless she has material, and she requires 3 level 3 materials. So while she was good in her time, it just never really was. She was just a way to use Bahamut Shark more effectively, and that's like the only use you ever got out of her. So other than that, she's pretty bad. Abyss Glacia's pretty good. I mean, not gonna lie, it did take 3 years for her to come out, but being a generic Link 2 for the entire water decks, and also having the same effect of the Starboy to make things gain attack, 2 downward, left and right arrows, pretty good rarity too. 1600 attack and has like 3 effects. Having monsters with multiple effects and all the effects are useful is a really good thing to have in just one card that's super generic to make. I mean, the 500 attack boost is really nice. During your opponent's main phase, you can send a card from your hand to the graveyard to search for any Mermail monster, set up your plays with Teus, Megalo, etc. But the main drawback is that it doesn't say discard, meaning she won't ever activate your Gund. So that's like the only drawback. Although she does, trigger all of your Atlantean stuff, the fact that you can't really use Gund kind of makes it worse in a pure mono Mermail deck. But who was ever playing mono Mermails in the first place? This isn't like 2013 anymore. And then the last effect is she's sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect by battle, destruction. Being able to dump any water monster, then special summon any water monster in defense is pretty good. Foolish Burial during the opponent's turn, you can basically send any infantry, marksman, etc. just to pop stuff. Maybe even send Dragoons to certain special. If you special summon Dine or something, you get 2 summons. Special summon Lend, that's an extra card if she's destroyed. She's a pretty good card. Other than being pretty amazing for the deck, that one thing about the whole discarding and sending stuff kind of hinders thing a bit. Like, for example, if you could discard instead of send, I would personally play 2 Gun to my deck, because being able to just revive anything you want is pretty good if you don't have an infantry to discard. But that's just me. Abyss Balin's pretty terrible. It requires 4 Mermail monsters to discard, and the effect is to destroy all monsters opponent controls and it gains 500 attack. It's just not good. I don't know why this got an ultimate rare spot. I mean, if every single big Mermail monster just needed to discard 1 water monster, you'd be playing lead, Megalo, Teus, possibly Balin as well if you had to discard a Mermail monster. But honestly, the reward you get from using him successfully is nowhere near as good as any of the other cards. So there's that. Abyss Lead, on the other hand, many people play this. I mean, if you look at Duel Links, etc., you'd be playing him just for the major attack to summon off of Lend. I mean, 2700 attack, discard 3 water monsters. It's pretty generic in that sense, being searchable because it's a Sea Serpent. Yeah, Abyss Balin's not even searchable unless you use, Alacia, so there's that. But Abyss Lead can also revive your Abyss Scales or your Abyss Spell and Trap cards from the graveyard if you summon him successfully. And having 2700 attacks, nothing to, just scoff at. It's pretty good. but it's nothing towards Megalo. So if I can find lead, I'd honestly play You Can Play It or Not. If you had to discard just 2 cards, of course I'd put it in the Can Play It or Not. But for the most part, he's not worth it unless you play it at 1, but he's still a decent thing to summon off of Lind in the first place. Or if you discard 3 infantry, destroy your opponent's board. Piccolo, 2400 attack. Discard 2 water monsters searchable by Dragoons. I think we all know where this card's going. It's a pretty amazing card. You could honestly say it could be better, but the fact that you contribute, say, Neptibus or Dragoons or infantry in face-up attack position to make it gain the ability to attack twice, and searching any Abyss scale is basically the same thing as Abyss Teus. It's also searchable by Dragoons. So it's just really the time and place on when Megalo's good, because if you're playing Imperial Mermail deck, of course you're playing multiple Megalos. There's like no question about it. I think the same thing can be said for Mermail Abyss Teus. Now if Abyss Teus was in fact a Sea Serpent, this deck would be top tier. Mermail Abyss Teus, it's a pretty decent card, pretty amazing for the deck, only using 1 discard to search for any level 4 or lower Mermail monster. It's not a Sea Serpent, but it doesn't hinder it too bad because he is searchable, albeit a little bit slow. I think we all know that. Otherwise, pretty amazing for the deck. Abyss Pike and Abyss Turge are the best level 4 Mermail monsters to search off of Teus. I think Pike should be up there with pretty amazing for the deck, but it's not the best normal summon for Mermail, so I'm going to put it in that could be better. While as Turgeman put in Play It or Not. Both have the same effect, being able to discard a water monster to either with Pike search a level 3 water monster, or with Turge add back a level 3 or lower water monster from the graveyard to the hand. Pike can search any level 3 water in the game, Turge can bring back any level 3 or lower water monster from the graveyard. Both are fish, because level 4 Mermail monsters are fish types. So pretty standard, 1700 attack and 1600 attack respectively. You don't really want to use your normal summon for these monsters just because there's better targets in the Sea Serpent or the Deep Sea and Atlantean archetypes. So that's like the one thing Mermail kind of lacks. But when it comes to their level 7 higher boss monsters, it has some pretty decent ones at that. Abyss Nose is a really interesting case because it's like the 3rd best level 4, even though there's only like 4 level 4s in the entire thing. So with Abyss Nose, he kind of requires him to destroy an opponent's monster by battle, and if it sends it to the graveyard, you can discard 1 water monster to the graveyard to special 1 Mermail monster from your deck in defense position. It's not worth it. 1500 attack, 1500 defense isn't going to break over anything, and so it's pretty bad. Abyss Lung, on the other hand, there's no guess about it. It's pretty trash. Your opponent cannot target face-up monsters you control for attacks, not even card effects. And all water monsters you control gain 300 attack. So it's pretty bad. You don't really get any advantage from summoning him, and so it's better off to just keep him out of the deck in general. Mermail Abyssland, probably the prettiest card in the entire Mermail archetype. And here's a strange case. You could play her or not. You usually want to play her at 1 if you're playing a more pure Mermail build. Being able to special summon any Mermail monster from your deck in attack or defense, meaning you can just normal summon her and crash her, to special summon Lead, which has 2700 attack, and just poke for whatever reason. And of course, you can also send her off of your Abyss Salacia, or even just target her in the graveyard and special summon off of that. It's a pretty decent card. She doesn't really need to be better, because if and then she doesn't even miss time because she has if in her card effect. And one of the things that really works really well with her is the Mermail Abyss Dyne, and I almost want to say she would be the best Mermail target to search off of Teus if she didn't have the restriction to use one or the other effect. You cannot use both in one turn. The first effect being if she's added from the deck to your hand and you control a Mermail monster, you can freely special summon herself. And the other effect is when this card is special summoned by the effect of a Mermail monster, you can target 1 level 3 or lower Mermail monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. And so there's no level 2 or level 1 Mermail monster, so I don't even know why it says level 3 or lower. It's like the same case as Colossalus from Necros. There's no Necros trap card yet. Dyne's really good. If you can use both effects, this card would be so busted as for link climbing in general. I'm sure Mermails would have seen a lot more table or top tables. And if she just didn't have that restriction, she could really be a really integral card in the deck. Now, Abyss Gun, on the other hand, being an if effect, meaning she doesn't really miss time, just being sent to the graveyard by any means, discarding. So if she's discarded by a danger, discarded by a nightmare link monster, she's supposed to summon any Mermail monster from your graveyard. It is a once per turn effect, so there's that, but it's pretty simple. Level 3, searchable by Pike or Teus. And she's a pretty amazing card for the deck. So I'm going to put her up with Teus and Megalo, personally. Now here's the other thing. Abyss Hild is a really good card. Now, can play it or not, and could be better, or kind of in the same field of things. However, Abyss Hild would be such an amazing card to be played if you had a better target to summon off of her. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can summon one Mermail monster from your hand, except Abyss Hill. If you send this card via Foolish Burial, via Title, via any means to get to the graveyard, you can special summon a Mermail monster from your hand. Obviously, your main targets would either be Pike or Turge or Dine. Because if you send this card and special summon Dine, Dine will target the Hild to special summon the Hild. The same thing could be said, for example, if you summon Lyn, Lyn's destroyed, Lyn summons Hild, Hild's destroyed, special summon Dine from your hand, Dine revive Hild or Lyn. It's just kind of looping stuff for defenses, which could honestly prove to be very difficult for the opponent to get around. Now for the actual starter for the Mermail deck, if we could even consider it a starter, Mermail Abyss Osha. So there's two things why I could play it and not worth it, or can play it or not. And I'm almost going to say not worth it because there's better normal summons. And she's like the only thing you can do for the deck, but here's the biggest issue. Not only does this card not really work with any Link monsters for just being her by herself, nor do we have a Link 1 Mermail Link monster. Anything she summons that has a win effect, miss times. So if you use this to target Teus, it's supposed to summon a level 3 and level 4 Mermail monster. Pike, Turge, they're not going to get their effects. Then you have to like link both of those two off for like Hild or something, Hild or Dine. And Dine doesn't get her effect either. So it's pretty bad in that sense. You can only link climb into a Link 2. And we don't even have multiple Totally Awesomes to use Bahamut Shark loops. So she's honestly, I almost want to say she's not worth it just for those two main factors. If Dine didn't have her effect, or if Pike and Turge were not wins but instead ifs, Osha would be could be better. So I'm just going to say Osha's going to be put in the could be better, because there's just better cards to summon off of it. And I'm not going to dwell too much on her. We're going to move straight over to Abyss Nurai. Abyss Nurai is a pretty cool card, and I kind of want to put it in the could play it or not, just because she's such an interesting effect, being the Cyber or Circuit Break set. 2000 defense, nothing to scoff at. It's pretty decent. Aqua means it's not searchable, but you can search it off of Abyss Alatia, then use her as a hand trap honest. I mean, she's pretty decent. As a quick effect, you can discard this card and target one water monster in your hand or one water monster you control. Destroy one other water monster in your hand or field, and if you do, the target monster gains attack and defense equal to the destroyed monster's original attack and defense until the end of the turn. It's a pretty decent card. You can basically use this with Megalo if you use this effect to attack twice and equip with an Abyss scale. Do a one punch OTK. So there's that. Also, if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, being an if effect, meaning it's something you could summon off of, Osha to help cycle cards out of your hand. You can draw a card, then discard one card, which can also trigger guns. So there's that. That rounds up the majority of the Mermail monsters, but I feel like with Abyss Mander, two things. It's just level manipulation that's searchable, just like Mangelica, the Deep Sea City. And so I almost want to say he's not worth it just because of VFD, and VFD is so likely to get hit on the ban list, and so I'm just going to move this card down here. If we had some other way to just have better water monsters in general, it could really help the deck. Mander, looking forward, it's just not really worth it in terms of card advantage. Alright, on to the Atlantean stuff. This has some of the really cooler stuff. This also has some of the oldest cards in the entire water archetype. Poseidra, the Atlantean Dragon. 2800 attack, it's level 7. You contribute 3 level 3 or lower water monsters. Okay, level 3 or lower water monsters you control, not even from your hand. It's already pretty bad. So it's like a retrain of Tidal, Dragon Ruler of Waterfalls. When you do a Returnal spell and trap, it's a giant tornado. That's a good effect. It's just that summoning condition's really hard. If it's at any cards from like your hand or your field, you'd play this card at 1 for sure. Because just being able to tribute your infantry from your hand and the field, it's just like normal summon Diva, special summon Prince, Prince effect, send Dragoons, add infantry, Dragoons effect, add Poseidra, tribute, Diva, Neptibus, plus the infantry you search to special summon himself. That would be a really good combo going second. But unfortunately that's not the case. I'm just going to pop to put him in the could be better. But it's definitely a prime target if they're going to retrain the entire water structure deck in the future. So let's go ahead and keep our eyes open. For the baby dragon, we have Tridon. Tridon's an interesting case because it's supposed to mimic the baby dragon. It's level 3, so it's searchable off of Pike. You contribute this card once he's okay, it has to be tributed from the field, not the hand. automatically pretty bad. Like I said, it could be better. Like these two cards just need to be revamped, and this deck could be like leagues better. Honestly, I want to put the could be better underneath the complaint or not, but I'm just gonna leave it here for now. Atlantean Dragoons, 1800 attack, level 4. Bahamut Shark plays. Ultimate rare, search any sea serpent. Level 3 lower sea serpents can attack directly. It's a pretty good card. Happy it's off the ban list. Marksman. Could be better, because the set card that hits just doesn't really cut it. Being able to attack directly to summon prints from the deck's pretty decent. So, but it's hard to set up Dragoons plus Marksman sometimes. So you're just going to have to get lucky poking over something. Atlantean Heavy Infantry. The same case, could be better. If you target a face-up card or something and they move it. I think it's mostly the case with Marksman. If you target a set card, it disappears. Infantry gives you an extra normal summon. Plus it allows you to destroy a face-up card, but if that target changes, it's pretty bad. So I'd say it's pretty decent for the deck. The only issue is that you lose to effect failure or imperm. But if you just ignore those things, it's a really amazing card. Atlantean Attack Squad. There's a ton of level 3 or lower Sea Serpents. The only issue is especially summoning them out while having Dragoons on the field. So there's that major issue. If there's a way to get more lower level water monsters onto the field, this deck could be really fun to play sometime in the future. Atlantean Attack Squad's pretty interesting. I mean, he has 2,200 attack, while you control a face-up fish, sea serpent, or other type other than this card. And you can actually play it in a pure Atlantean deck, but just how to summon it, it's not worth. Definitely not worth. But here's the interesting case. If you compare it to the first Atlantean card to ever come out, Atlantean Pikeman, Pikeman's pretty terrible. Pikeman's absolutely not worth it. It's a wasted spot, but it's also pretty cool since it's like the start of the entire Atlantean archetype. You can summon it off a Rescue Rabbit. You can't even make totally with it. And so, instead, there's a much better prime candidate, and that's Nepis the Atlantean Prince. Pretty amazing. Effect doesn't activate on summon, so you can't like get pulling the rug or something. But because it doesn't activate on summon, if this card does have its effects negated, it still sends an Atlantean monster for cost, meaning you still get Dragoons, you still get Infantry, you still get Marksman. It's an incredibly, not toxic, but it's a very interesting card. It's really tough to play around if your opponent just doesn't have the proper cards to deal with it. Being also level 1, plus having a second effect, being if it's into the graveyard, activate water monster's effect, you can summon any Atlantean monster from your graveyard, attack or defense. That's pretty insane. Normal summon this, use Megalo to destroy the Neptibus, to summon a Dragoons from the graveyard. That's just a lot of damage just tacking in. That runs up to the Sea Serpent stuff. Prima Donna, new Synchro monster. She's pretty amazing for the deck. I'm gonna say it. Could be a hot take. Could be a pretty generic feeling. 3 effects: Sea Serpent, Synchro, Tuner, level 7, 2,700 defense. This is amazing. You summon Trishula, you summon Crocodragon, you summon Dragite. It's basically a super. I just need to stop saying basically so much. It's pretty. Hair in my mouth. It's generic to make, requires no special attributes or typings. 3 effects, opponent cannot target a synchro monster using this card as material, so non-targeting protection. Another effect, you can target one of your opponent's banished cards and take a level 4 or lower water monster, completely generic, from your deck, add it back to their hand to summon that card. Swap Frog, Barrier Statue, Neptibus, Artisan, the world is your oyster. You have all the power in the world to use this card to develop your strategy. Only issue is that it's really hard to summon her now that Destrudo is completely out of the picture. Now the field spell does kind of offer some level manipulation, but the field spell just doesn't do anything by itself. That's like, if you were to give the water decks a catchphrase, this card does nothing by itself, because you have to have a discard target or another card that lets you do something. That's the entire Mermail archetype. But if this card's sent to the graveyard, target one banished card, shuffle it into the deck. This card and hand loop stuff. That's pretty cool. Deep Sea Minstrel. I think we all know exactly where this card goes. The first card to make it to one of the best cards in the game. I'm also going to put Neptibus up there. Don't at me. He's best boy. Yeah, Minstrel having 2 effects, being a level 3 and a tuner, just makes her like the best card all around. She just doesn't have a normal summon effect. But that's fine. Use her discard prince, discard infantry, discard marksman. She's your starter, your true starter card with another water monster. Look at your opponent's hand, get all the hand knowledge, take out an Nibiru or an Imperm, stop one hand trap, at least one. Everyone says Mermails can't play through a single hand trap if they get hand trapped. That's not the case. You've got Divas, you've got Teuses, Shathanas, you've got everything. Now, it just really depends how you play your deck. That's the truth. But Mermails can definitely play through at least 2 hand traps. And of course, something's hard if you don't have ways to deal with it, but Called by the Grave, you have Forbidden Droplets, you got tons of ways now. Yeah, Minstrel has a second effect too if she's special summoned in general. All Deep Sea main deck monsters except for Diva has that effect. If it's special summoned, you can mill 3 cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard, which is cost, which can also trigger your Atlantean cards. Hoorah, we should actually have more strategies incorporating that. And target 1 level 4 or lower water monster and put it on the top or bottom of the deck. Basically a searchable part of ours. Deep Sea Sentry is a level 2 water monster, so it's not searchable like Minstrel is. And so Sentry, I almost want to say, is not worth it. Because it has really low attack. 2000 defense is okay, but it's just like not a whole lot of ways to get him into your hand. If this card's into the graveyard to upgrade a water monster's effect, much like Dragoons or any of the infantries, you can look at your opponent's hand and make them banish 1 card of their choice. You don't get a look. To the end turn. So it's pretty okay if you want to combine it with Minstrel to look at or make your opponent get rid of 2 cards. This card's special summon, mill 2 cards, enter 1 level 4 or lower water monster in your graveyard, add it to the hand. There's better cards than to use him. Artisan, on the other hand, pretty amazing for the deck. Being a level 1 means if it's special summoned, you can use 1 for 1 and send the top card of your deck to the graveyard to target 1 level 4 or lower water monster, pretty generic, and special summon it, but negate its effects. But here's the bright side. If this card is added from the deck or graveyard to your hand, you can look at your opponent's hand. Can't do anything fancy with it, but at least you have the hand knowledge to work around. So one easy combo is to special summon this card off of your Prima Donna. Use Artisan to target Prince, revive Prince, Prince effect, negated. You still send for cost, get something out of it. Then you go ahead and make Crocodragon to either draw 2, or you can make a Trishula to banish some cards. Artisan's not a tuner, so you can of course use her with your Prima Donna and your Neptibus. All lickety split. It's a really cool card. It's just, if you're playing the Hulk Turbo version, which honestly is it's pretty crap. It's not very fun to play, even though it is better, but it just kind of loses the charm that Mermail has, which is fine. It's how things develop and evolve. But I mean, looking forward, I'm gonna play Pure Mermails. Pure Mermails is really strong, especially by making Dragite Hashima. Totally awesome with your field spell. I mean, not field spell, but Bisalacia with Gaius and Appaloosa. It's a pretty formidable board. You can make it pretty damn consistently. It's no Block Dragon out Emancipators, but it's definitely up there as something really good. And last Deep Sea card, I think we all know what it is. Deep Sea Diva, special summon any level 3 or lower Sea Serpent from your deck. She's a tuner. She normal summons. And she has less than 1,000 attack to make Almirage, should you ever want to. Deep Sea Diva, it's pretty damn good. One of the best cards in the game. She's like the source code for many FEKs. And I don't know if you've noticed, I left all the Spell and Trap cards for last because I think we should look at them all together because all of them are pretty generic in what they do. So starting with Mangelica, the Deep Sea City. I actually don't have this card yet, so I'm going to be reading off of my phone. But this card's always treated as Umi, so it works with Abyss Storm. When this card's activated, you can place a water monster from your deck on top of your deck. So you can put Teos on top of your deck. Can't actually draw it, but you can put it up there. So you can mill it, so that you can stack your deck. Kind of like Emancipator Cave or something. Once returned, target 1 water monster you control increases level by 1 or 2 until the end of this turn. So that's one way to help make your Deep Sea Prima Donna. But if you're not a normal summon Divas or summon Prince, you don't want to normal summon Divas. The normal and special summon Dragoons is just waste. So having Diva plus Neptibus doesn't really get you anywhere, and because it doesn't manipulate down, it just manipulates up. It does not work with any of the big Mermails, unfortunately. Once returned during your main phase, if you specify a water synchro monster, you look at your opponent's hand. If you do, banish 1 card until the end turn. So that basically sets up your Prima Donna, while also keeping Minstrels, whatever target she chooses, out of the hand. It's a decent card, but it's unfair to say it could be better. It definitely could be better. but it's also when can play it or not. I'd almost say don't play it unless there's a consistent way to make Prima Donna. Because other than that, there's not really much worth to it. Deep Sea Aria, on the other hand, is just like every single card in the Mermail archetype. Good card, but it doesn't do anything by itself because you need to have a water monster in the graveyard, but it searches any level 4 lower sea serpent. So, for example, if you normal summon Diva or gets hand trapped or special summon Shathana, you make Monka the Tinny, use Arya to banish your monk to search for something. It just requires some premature setup in the first hand. Call of the Atlanteans. This card I've always looked at, and it really is a better scapegoat in a sense. It does require some prior setup, but being able to quick play target 3 level 3 or lower sea serpent type monsters in your graveyard and special summon all of them. Only drawback, you cannot special summon monsters during the turn you activate this card, so if you have Abyssallation on the field and you use your effect to dump something to revive something, you can't use Call of the Atlanteans. Now, because it says during the turn you activate this card, it makes it really interesting. I don't know if you can chain Atlanteans to the effect of Abyssallation, or if it's just a case you have to choose one or the other. But if you can chain this to Abyssallation, I honestly might play it. But it's something I'm really not sure about. It's a really good card. If they retrain this, or just remove that one restriction, this card would be absolutely broken. Search it off of Neptibus, revive 3 things, lane climb. It's really good. Alright, Abyss Scale Lucidus, equip only to a Mermail monsters. Basically, all of the Abyss Scales just, they don't negate the activation, they negate on resolution. So they work around Super Poly and stuff, but they do kind of fizzle out if you use a field spell, continuous spell, or continuous trap card. And that's just because the nature of the card. If they retrained these, they would definitely be a whole lot better. But, Cetus gains 100 attack, negates a trap effect. It's the purple armor. You can play it or not. Kraken gains 400 attack, negate a monster effect. You already have other monster effect negators, so I'm almost say not worth it. Because you want to equip this to Gaius. Mizuchi gains 800 attack, negates a spell card. I mean, it's pretty decent. I'd put those in the complete or not. As really decent, decently generic cards. Abyssphere. It's a really interesting trap card. It summons any Mermail from your deck, but it negates their effects, so you can't summon Pike or Turge. I wish it didn't have that restriction. We already don't have a Mermail starter, and now you're stopping us from using Pike or Turge. We used this card when we were using the Gumblar Handloop stuff, and stops you from using any spell cards, and this card's destroyed during your opponent's next end phase after activation. It's okay. It really is revolved around what cards you use with it. You can use it with Synchro Summoning with Halka Fabrics, but other than that, you don't summon anything worth off of it because you're already using your Abyssallation to discard the infantry. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in Kin Plate or not. And this brings me to the Abyss Squall. This card. Target 3 Mermail monsters in your graveyard. Special summon all of them. Those targets in phase of defense position. Negate their effects. They cannot declare attack. Destroy them during the end phase. You can set this card after searching it and use those 3 monsters to link Climax, Seize Climb, etc. You just have to let them wait until the beginning of your next turn. Because if you summon this all during the opponent's turn, unless you're summoning Lend, you're just going to kind of lose out on card advantage. But if you use this card during your standby phase to revive like level 7s, level 3s, level 4s, it just sets up so much play. Only bad thing is you kind of have to let them sit and not do anything. Abyss Strom. You have to send a face-up Yumi to the graveyard to destroy all spell and trap cards on the field. It's not worth it. You can't really search Magellanica. You can't search Magellanica without terraforming. It's only 4 copies. Kind of inconsistent if you compare it to the entire Mermail Atlantean archetypes and all their other cards. So if there's a way to just make Angelica better, like if it searched something on activation, if it just searched a deep sea card, it would be pretty damn good. But this leads us to his last card, Abyss Scorn. Target 1 Mermail monster you control gains 1000 attack to the end phase. Trap card, not a quick play spell. It's pretty bad. When this card is sent to graveyard, target 1 monster your opponent controls, send that target to the graveyard. Non-targeting removal, but it does target. It's pretty terrible. It's not always. It's pretty bad. Could definitely be something better. And so, one last look on this tier list best cards in the game. I think it's pretty accurate. Even if they are water reliant, they are some of the best cards in the damn game. Pretty amazing for the deck. I'm pretty confident on my choices, even with Prima Donna and Artisan. Megalo, really good card taste. Most of these cards you play multiple copies of anyway in the main deck. Extra deck, only one of. Gaios was ahead of its time. Bisolacia just had one tiny issue, then she'd be pretty amazing for the deck. Oh yeah, there's a lot of cards in there. Like, right now, Poseidra and Tridon, those are pretty trash. I still love them. They could be so much better, but these cards in general just aren't good. So I'm going to move them down to trash, but I love it. Squall, Call the Atlantean's really good, it's just missing the right effects. For this middle row, it's pretty standard. I've played all of these cards at least once against all my builds for the past few years. For the not worth it, I really think Mander's going to go down there. Not right at the moment, but soon he's going to go pretty down there. Trash, but I love it. Poseidra, Tridon. Wasted Spot. Yeah, Wasted Spot, those cards can go, and I'd be perfectly happy with them disappearing. And yeah, that wraps up this tier list. If you guys want me to take a look at other decks and my opinions, sure, just mention them below. Ooh, I just kind of want to take a little bit of a gander on some of like the decks I play and reflect and just like, because it's going to help you theory craft. It's going to help me theory craft with my deck in the future, especially if new support comes out. And if you start combining this with generic water support, like Bahamut Shark, Mastar Boy, Totally Awesome, the Swap Frog engine, that just makes everything just better. But in a vacuum, Deep Seas, Atlanteans, and Mermails have always been like together because they're all sea serpents and stuff, except for Taze, which is an aqua, and some of the other fish types. But overall, this deck is it has a really good selection of cards in its card pool to work with. And it's got some really good rarities to boot. And that's it. I'm not going to shill out and ask you guys to subscribe to my inconsistent uploads. Yeah, I'm just going to put things out because I think it's cool and fun to experiment with stuff. So I hope you guys have a good night, and I will see you later this week with another update or video.